Hey there, friends. What's up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Yud Gimel, Daf 13 of Masechta Yevamos. Friends, what do you think today's Daf talks about? Or how about this? Who do you think shows up in today's Daf? Reuvein? What about Shimin? And what would Reuvein and Shimin be without Sarah? Maybe Rivkeh? Alright, what do you want me to tell you? Levi? Alright, friends, Daf Yud Gimel, we're going to wrap up the first Mishnah of Masechta Yevamos, and then we're going to start the second Mishnah of Masechta Yevamos. Don't worry, the second Mishnah is equally as challenging. I haven't used any Advil in the past few days, so I guess that's good. It doesn't mean that it's any easier. I don't know, maybe my brain is getting stronger. Friends, let's go weiter. We're going to start on Daf Yud Gimel, 5 lines into the page. Ketzab poches tzarosein v'chulei. All right. So the Mishnah had talked about how let's take like the simple. I mean, simple is relative these days, but the simple case of Reuvein is married to Sarah and to Rivkeh. Reuvein dies. So then Sarah and Rivkeh kind of have like a zika now with Shimin. The thing is that Rivkeh is Shimin's daughter. So therefore, Shimin and Rivkeh are not going to be doing Yibum. And we say that not only is it that Shimin and Rivkeh don't do Yibum because Rivkeh is Shimin's daughter, but also the co-wife Sarah doesn't do Yibum either. And then we said, and not just Sarah, but if Sarah then goes and does Yibum with Levi instead of Shimin, and Levi is married to Ruchel, so then if Levi dies, so then Sarah doesn't do Yibum with Shimin because she was married to Rivkeh, who's Shimin's daughter, but also Ruchel, who was the co-wife of Sarah by Levi. So also Ruchel doesn't do Yibum with Shimin either. So basically the point being that it's not just the erva, but the co-wife of the erva and any future co-wives of that co-wife. Friends, says the Gemara, Minane Mile, how do we know this whole co-wife thing? So Amar Rav Yehuda says Rav Yehuda Amar Kra that the pasuk says Litzor. Well, the pasuk is talking about tzaros, ataribs, tzaros arbe. That it doesn't, right? It doesn't say latzur or whatever. It says litzror. Litzror is multiple, so it includes many co-wives, even of different marriages, right? It's not just the co-wife of Rivkeh when she's married to Reuvein, even the co-wife of Sarah who was married to Rivkeh. When Sarah then marries Levi, and Levi has another wife in Ruchel, it's just that, it's the co-wives and the co-wives of the co-wives, fine, because it says Litzor. Rav Ashi Omer says, Rav Ashi Svari, it's tautological. Sarah, my time, Asira. How come Sarah, the Tzara, is Asur to Shimin? The Makum Erva Kaima. Well, because she was in a place of Erva. Because Sarah was a co-wife of Rivkeh. Rivkeh is an erva with Shimin. So Memele, since Sarah was a co-wife of Rivkeh, so then she doesn't do Yibum with Shimin. And guess what? If she does Yibum with Levi, and Levi has a wife, Ruchel, and now Sarah, who was a co-wife of Rivkeh, who was an erva with Shimin, Sarah now goes and is now a co-wife with Ruchel, so then Ruchel is now a co-wife with Sarah, who is Makum Erva as well. She then kind of carries over her sort of Erva situation to Ruchel as well. So and every future co-wife is going to sort of have a little bit of that erva with them. So tzara is tzara nami b'makom erva kaima. So also the tzara of the tzara, right? Ruchel, who's the tzara of Sarah, who is the tzara of Rivkeh, they all are sort of have this erva sort of part to them, all stemming from the fact that Rivkeh is the daughter of Shimin. So then, sort of by association, maybe you could say, like by association, Sarah then has that erva association, and then she picks it up. And then when she goes over to Levi, and there's a co-wife Ruchel over there, so then Ruchel now is associated with Sarah, who has this association with Rivkeh, and onwards. Everybody who's associated in that sense sort of has that erva with them, and that is why it carries from, one erva relationship to the next. Okie dokie. Let's move on. Ketzad imesu hein chule va'afilu konas ulvasof geresh. Shnikes. What in the world does this mean? Okay, so the Mishnah had said lemaise that. So let's say you have Reuvein. And Reuvein was married to Rivkeh. Now, Rivkeh is Shimin's daughter. Okay. Now, Reuvein then marries Sarah. Sarah is some random person. Okay. So now, what the Mishnah said is that if Rivkeh, who is Shimin's daughter, then gets a divorce from Reuvein, so now Reuvein only has one wife, and that is Sarah. And then Reuvein dies, so Sarah would do Yibum with Shimin. Because since at the time that Reuvein died, Rivkeh was no longer married to Reuvein, so therefore Sarah can do Yibum with Shimin. Meaning, right, we were assuming in the Mishnah that basically if when Reuvein dies, he has two wives, Sarah and Rivkeh. Rivkeh is the daughter of Shimin. Therefore, Rivkeh is an erva with Shimin, and therefore, by association, as the co-wife, Sarah also would not do Yibum with Shimin either. But the Mishnah said that if Rivkeh got divorced from Reuvein, and therefore, when Reuvein died, Rivkeh was not a co-wife, and Sarah was the only wife, so then the fact that at one point Sarah was married to Rivkeh, who is an erva with Shimin because she's his daughter, even though at one point they were co-wives, when Reuvein died they were not co-wives, and therefore Sarah would do Yibum with Shimin. Okay? And even though they did overlap as co-wives, but because Rivkeh got divorced before Reuvein died, when Reuvein died, Sarah was the only wife, and she has no relation to Shimin, and she could do Yibum. So says the Gemara, gerish, even if Reuvein was married to Rivkeh, who was Shimin's daughter, he was married to her, and then he married Sarah, and Sarah and Rivkeh overlapped, and only afterwards did Rivkeh get divorced. Still, we're saying the fact of the matter is that when Reuvein dies, Sarah was the only wife, and therefore she does Yibum with Shimin. Vira minhu, but we have a question. The question comes from a Mishnah. The Mishnah is on Daf Lamed. Friends, are you ready for the Mishnah on Daf Lamed? Gimel Achim, 3 brothers. Friends, Reuvein, Shimin, Levi. Shnayim mein nisuim beizachayos. I feel like my grandfather telling a riddle. Rishon shel shmi, Sheni shel shmi. It's like my grandfather setting up a riddle over here. Gimel Achim, you have 3 brothers. Shnayim mein nisuim beizachayos. Okay, so you have Reuvein, Shimin, and Levi. Reuvein and Shimin are married to 2 sisters. Friends, what do you think we should call them? Sarah and Rivkeh. Ve'echad nasu nachris, and Levi is married to just, some random Ruchel, some random person named Ruchel. So, again, you have Reuvein, Shimin, and Levi, obviously, right, and they're all brothers. Reuvein and Shimin are married to Sarah and Rivkeh. Sarah and Rivkeh are sisters. Levi is married to random Ruchel. somebody's making noise outside. Doesn't he know that we're learning Yevamos? I guess not. I guess not. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I guess not. Geresh echod mi baile achayos es ishto. Okay. Now, so if Reuvein divorced Sarah, okay, Reuvein divorced Sarah, okay, fine. V'meis hanasui nachris, and then Levi, who's married to random Ruchel, dies. V'kansa megarish, and then Reuvein does yibum with random Ruchel. V'meis, and then Reuvein dies. Zoe sha'amru, this is what they said, she'mesu on his garshu, that if they died or got divorced, tzarusein mutaros, then the tzaras are permitted to, then the tzaras are permitted. Friends, did you get the case? Did you get the case? Just in case you didn't, here it is. Reuvein, Shimin, and Levi. Reuvein and Shimin are married to Reuvein and Shimin are married to two sisters, Sarah and Rivkeh. Levi is married to just some random woman named Ruchel. Now, of course, if right now Reuvein were to die, so then Shimin would not do yibum with Sarah, because Sarah is the sister of his wife Rivkeh, right? So right, it would be Achos Isha, right? But that's not what happens. What happens is, Reuvein doesn't die just yet. He divorces Sarah. So he's no longer married to Sarah. Now Levi dies. Levi is married to random Rivkeh. No relation to Sarah, to random Ruchel. No relation to Sarah or Rivkeh. Now, Reuvein, who's now divorced, does yibum with random Ruchel. Okay. Reuvein now dies, and we're saying that random Ruchel is able to do yibum with Shimin. Now, even though she was the wife of Reuvein, and Reuvein at some point was married to Sarah, who's the sister of Rivkeh, who's married to Shimin, nonetheless, because Reuvein had divorced Sarah before doing yibum with random Ruchel, when Reuvein dies, Ruchel is able to do yibum with Shimin, who's also married to Rivkeh, who is the sister of Sarah. So let's read that again. So Gimel Achim, if you have three brothers, Reuvein, Shimin, and Levi, Shnai men nesuim beis achayos, Reuvein and Shimin are married to two sisters, Sarah and Rivkeh, ve'echad nasui nachris, Levi's married to random Ruchel. Geresh echod mi baile achayos ishto, Reuvein divorces Sarah, v'meis hanasui nachris, and then Levi dies. Levi, who's married to random Ruchel, dies. V'kansa megarish, and then Reuvein marries. Right, Reuven's already divorced from Sarah. He now does yibum with random Ruchel. V'meis, and then Reuvein dies. Zoe she'amru. This is what the Mishnah meant when it said she'mesu on his garshu, that if the erva died or got divorced, in this case the erva being Sarah, who is the sister of Rivkeh, who's married to Shimin. So if she died or she got divorced, such as in this case, Reuvein had divorced her before Levi even died, Tzarusein Mutaros, so they're co-wives, which is not exactly a co-wife because she was already divorced by the time that random Rivkeh did yibum with Reuvein, but Kilu, they both had the same husband, at least at different times. So in this case, we say that the Tzaros are Mutaros, that random Ruchel would be able to do Yibum with Shimin, even though she was married to Reuvein, who was at one point married to Sarah, who was the sister of Shimon's wife Rivkeh. Fine. Now, frek the Gemara, time of the gerish v'achar kach konos. So it seems to be that the reason why random Ruchel can now do Yibum with Shimin is because Reuvein had divorced Sarah before doing Yibum with random Ruchel. Aval konos v'achar kach gerish, but if he first would have done Yibum with random Ruchel, and then at the same time random Ruchel and Sarah would have been co-wives together of Reuvein at the same time. V'achar kach geresh, and then afterwards Sarah got divorced. So at the time that Reuvein died, Sarah was at the time that Reuvein died, random Ruchel was the only wife. But nonetheless, since she overlapped with Sarah, who's the sister of Rivkeh, who's married to Shimin, so then she would not be able to do Yibum with Shimin. Random Ruchel would be unable to do Yibum with Shimin if she overlapped at any point with Sarah. So Amar B'Yirmiyah Tavra. So B'Yirmiyah said it's taka akasha. Mishashana zo lo shana zo. So clearly the author of our Mishnah that says that even if Sarah and random Ruchel overlapped, as long as Sarah got divorced before Reuvein died, random Ruchel could do Yibum with Shimin. So the author of our Mishnah is clearly different than the author of this Brisa, which says that Reuvein would have had to divorce Sarah before doing Yibum with random Ruchel. So Haitana Savar Misa Mapeles. So the Tana of our Mishnah holds that basically the death of Reuvein is what is like Kovea Kilu, is like what's the determining factor, and therefore the Tana of our Mishnah holds that as long as when Reuvein dies, random Ruchel was the only wife, even if she overlapped with Sarah at some point, it doesn't matter. That when he died, that when Reuvein dies, his death is what is kind of the factor. And at that point, if random Ruchel is the only wife, so then she can do Yibum with Shimin. Tana Savar, whereas the Tana of the Brisa holds Nisuin Arishonim Mapilim. No, it's the marriage that is the determining factor. And if at any point during the marriage, Sarah and random Rivkeh were co-wives, so then random Rivkeh would not do Yibum with Shimin. Reuvein Omar says, Reuvein La'olam Chad Tanu. No, really it is the same Tana V'zo Ve'in Tzarich Lomar Zo Katani. And what the Mishnah is saying, no, in a situation, even when they overlapped at some point, still, as long as when, our Mishnah is saying that as long as when Reuvein dies, random Ruchel is the only wife, so then she can do Yibum with Shimin, even if they overlapped at some point. And then Ve'ein Tzarich Lomar Zo, and then certainly if Reuvein divorced Sarah before doing Yibum with random Ruchel, then certainly it goes without saying that that when Reuvein dies, random Ruchel can do Yibum with Shimin. Okie dokie. Now, the Mishnah had also said that in any situation where she was able to do Me'un, but did not do Me'un, so then Chalitza is in order. So this is a situation where Reuvein is married to Sarah and to Rivkeh. Now, Rivkeh is the daughter, of course, of Shimin, but she's a minor. She's a Ketana, and she can do Me'un. She could refuse, and she could say, Reuvein, I'm not married to you. I'm out of here. Now, so if when Reuvein's alive, Rivkeh, the Ketana, says that I'm out of here, so then she's out of there. And when Reuvein dies, So then, and Sarah can do a Yibum with Shimin, even though she was at some point married to Rivkeh. Now, but, as the Mishnah says, and she didn't, but if, when Reuvein died, Rivkeh, the Ketana, was still there, was still married to Reuvein, so then we say, well, then Sarah needs to do Chalitza. So says the Gemara, so now, fact the Gemara, 1 second. But why can't Rivkeh the Ketana just do Me'un now? Why not say that just like when Reuvein was alive, Rivkeh the Ketana could have just been like, I'm out of here, and then that would have annulled the marriage. So why can't right now, Reuvein's dead, there's Sarah now and there's Rivkeh the Ketana. Rivkeh is the daughter of Shimin. Why can't, she's a Ketana, why can't she just say, forget it, and annul the marriage of Reuvein already milechatchila? She's out of the picture, and all that's left is Sarah, and Sarah can do Yibum with Shimin. So let's say that from the fact that we say that Sarah needs to do Chalitza, this supports Rabbi Boshaya. The Amar Boshaya, Mima'enes l'maimaro ve'ena mima'enes l'zikaso. So what's this talking about? So it's talking about Reuvein, Shimin, and Levi. Alright, so you have Reuvein, Shimin, and Levi. Reuvein is married to Rivkeh. Rivkeh is a Ketana. Okay. And Reuvein dies. Alright. Now, Shimin does mimer with Rivkeh, i.e. he gives her money or whatever it is. He's like Mekadesh her. And that's, of course, we said, I believe yesterday, that it's their Abonon. So now there's essentially two things going on over here, right? She has like a Zika to one of the brothers, right, from the fact that she was married to Reuvein. So now, like, she's got to do Yibum or Chalitza, there's that. And then Shimin was kind of like Mekadesh her on a Derabanan level by like giving money or a shtar or whatever it is. That's what Shimin did. So, says Rabbi Oshaya, he says, Mima'enes l'maimaru ve'ena mima'enes l'zikaso. That if she says, I'm out. So by saying that she's out, so mima'enes l'maimaro ve'ena mima'enes l'zikaso. What does that mean? So let's say that she was a Gedola for a second, right? Let's say she was not a Ketana, she was a Gedola. She was an adult, and then Shimin did mimer, he was like Mekadesher, and then she wants to break that up. So if she wants to break that up, she has to get a get because of the mimer, because of this like Kiddushin, and she has to do Chalitza for the Yibum, for the Zika. Now, we're saying that because she's a Ketana, she doesn't need to get a divorce, she doesn't need to get a get because on account of the mimer, right? She says, Mima'enes le maimaro. By just, she's a Ketana now, right? And she's only married to Rabbanon. And when she says, I'm out, so she doesn't need to get a get for the mimer. But she still needs to, do Chalitza for the Zika, for the fact that, she was married to Reuvein and now Reuvein's dead and she has a Zika to Shimin and Levi because of, on account of the fact that she was married to Reuvein. So, therefore, she needs to do Chalitza nonetheless. So, it sounds like Me'un is unable to uproot sort of the initial marriage that she had with Reuvein. And therefore, from the fact that we're saying now in our Mishnah, that when Reuvein dies, and he's got two wives, Sarah and Rivkeh, the Ketana, who's the daughter of Shimin, and we're saying that Sarah needs to do Chalitza. So we asked, well, why doesn't Rivkeh, the Ketana, just say, I'm out, and that would basically nullify the initial marriage that she had to Reuvein? So we're saying that she cannot do that, and that Sarah is going to have to do Chalitza. So it sounds like what Rabbi Shai is saying, that even when a Ketana could do Me'un, and that would undo the mimer of Shimin, and she won't need a get, but she still needs to do Chalitza. It won't annul the marriage that she had to Reuvein once he's dead. No, this is not a proof for Rabbi Shai. Really, we'll say that the halacha is not like Rabbi Shai, that when a Ketana does Me'un, meaning when you just have a regular Ketana, right? Reuvein was married to some person named Rivkeh, who was a Ketana. It wasn't necessarily an Erva or anything like that, but a Ketana named Rivkeh. And then Reuvein dies, and then Shimin does mimer. So in that case, we'll say that when she says, I'm out, it's not like Rabbi Shai. We'll say that by saying she's out, so she doesn't need a get, she doesn't need Chalitza either. However, when it comes to Erva, when Rivkeh is the daughter of Shimin, so in that case, we cannot just say, I'm out to annul the marriage with Reuvein, because, Tzaras Erva Shani, so Tzaras Erva Shani, and Rashi says, because, we don't want to take things lightly. If you just allow her to just kind of uproot the initial marriage to Reuvein, it's a slippery slope, and you can end up having, a tzara of an erva, end up doing yibum, which would not be okay. The Tani Rabbi Bar Yechezkel taught, Me'ano bebaal muteris la'aviv. If you have, Sarah is married to Reuvein. Now, Sarah is a Ketana who's only married midrabanan, she's an orphan, whatever it is. So, Sarah is married to Reuvein. If she says, Reuvein, I'm out of here, so, Muteris la'aviv, she would be allowed to marry Yaakov, Reuvein's father, meaning, of course, Yaakov is not allowed to marry his daughter-in-law, but here she's doing Me'un. She's annulling the marriage to Reuvein, so now Yaakov could marry her. Me'ana ba'yavam asur la'aviv. But if Reuvein died, and now Shimin is gonna marry, we said her name was Sarah, right? So if she at that point says, I'm out, well then, Yaakov is not allowed to marry her anymore. So we see Alma Mishas Nefila Niris Kichalaso. So we see that even though when Reuvein is alive, she can just say, I'm out, and then Yaakov can marry her. But once Reuvein is dead, right, Mishas Nefila Niris Kichalaso. Once Reuvein is dead, and now she kind of like has a zika with Shimin, she can no longer annul the marriage to Reuvein. Hachanami, here also, Mishas Nefila, Niris Kitzaras Bito. So here also, when Reuvein is married to Sarah and to Rivkeh, who's a Ketana and is the daughter of Shimin, at the time, Mishas Nefila, at the time that Reuvein dies, and Sarah and Rivkeh the Ketana are now, kind of looking to Shimin, so Niris Kitzaras Bito, at that point, Sarah is considered the tzara of Rivkeh the Ketana, who is the daughter of Shimin, and things cannot be annulled at that point. So that is why Sarah needs to do. Chalitza at least, because it's too late to do Me'un and to annul the marriage. Okay, fine. Okay, well, that was essentially the first Mishnah of Masechta Yevamos. Friends, how was the first Mishnah of Masechta Yevamos? It's 13 daf, Masechta Yevamos. Alright, it's epis. What's it? It's like, we're more than 10% of the way through. Counts for something. Friends, moving on. It says the Mishnah, Sheish Arayos Chamurus Me'elu. There are 6 Arayos, 6 ervas, that are more stringent than the 15 that we have already listed. Now, it doesn't actually mean that they're more stringent, like, in terms of, you get like super kares. No, it doesn't mean that. It means that they're more stringent in that you wouldn't even be able to have a situation where your brother was married to this person, right? So, like, for example, when we talked about Bito, daughter, so Reuvein, Reuvein's married to Rivkeh. Rivkeh is Shimon's daughter. So no, Shimin can't marry his daughter, but his brother Reuvein can. So, but there are certain relationships that even Reuvein can't marry. for example, their sister, right? Shimin, right? If Yaakov has Reuvein, Yaakov has a son Reuvein, he has a son Shimin, he also has a daughter, Sarah. So Shimin can't marry Sarah, and guess what? Neither can Reuvein. So there are certain ervas that, right, that none of them are able to marry. So sheish harayos chamurus me'elu mipnei shenesuas lacherim, because they have to, or maybe on account of the fact that they're married to other people, memele, right? They can't be married to them, to the brothers. So we're saying mutaros, and in that case, the tsaros are permitted. So for example, if you have Yaakov has a son Reuvein, a son Shimin, and a daughter Sarah. Sarah then marries some random dude, and with this random dude, there's another wife, Rivkeh. So Reuven and Shimin would be able to marry Rivkeh even though they were married to the same person as their sister Sarah. That's okay. There's some other random guy. Fine. Here are the examples. Imo is mother. So for example, if you have Shimin would not be allowed to marry Reuven's mother, right? So let's say you have Yaakov. Yaakov is married to Sarah, and Yaakov is married to Rivkeh. With Sarah, Yaakov has Reuven. With Rivkeh, Yaakov has Shimin, right, as children. So then Shimin, whose mother is Rivkeh, would not be allowed to marry Reuven's mother, Sarah, because she's the wife of his father, even though it's not his mother, but it's the wife of his father. Okay. Ve'eshes aviv. Okay, so I guess his mother can never fall to any of the brothers in Yibum, and also, or ever be married to any of the brothers, and also any other wife of the father. Ve'achos aviv, and the sister of the father, achoso me aviv, their own sister from their father. Ve'eshes achi aviv, the wife of his father's brother. Ve'eshes achiv me aviv, and the wife of his brother from his father. Okay, in any of these cases, you would not be able to marry these people, and they have to marry other people, and but their tsaras would be permitted. What do you want me to tell you? B'sham matir natzaris la'achim. Friends, do you hear that? Friends, do you hear that? I will ask again. Friends, do you hear that? Let's read it again. B'sham matir natzaris la'achim. B'sham says the whole tzara thing, the whole co-wife thing that we've been discussing on and off for the past few days, that let's just say is not the easiest thing in the world. The whole co-wife thing is irrelevant. According to Beis Shammai, if you have Reuven is married to Sarah and to Rivkeh, Rivkeh is the daughter of Shimin. Sure, Shimin can't do even with his daughter, but he could do even with the co-wife Sarah, no problem. Beis Hillel says that like we're saying, that the co-wife is a problem. That you don't do even with the co-wife. Cholzu. Beis Shammai posel min hakuna, right? According to Beis Shammai, so the tzara is the co-wife does yibum, right? According to Beis Shammai, if you have Reuven is married to Sarah and to Rivkeh, Rivkeh is the daughter of Shimin, so Beis Shammai doesn't hold the whole co-wife thing. And therefore, Sarah, the co-wife, would do yibum with Shimin. And if Shimin does chalitza, they do chalitza. Beis Shammai posel. Beis Shammai says, okay, well, she's now a chalutza, right? What's it called? A chalutza, right? Yeah, grusha chalutza. Yeah. So she's now a chalutza, and a chalutza is posel akuna. She's not allowed to marry a kohen, right? Posel min akuna u'beis Hillel machshirin. But Beis Hillel says no. I mean, if Shimin does chalitza with Sarah, it's irrelevant because she's married to his daughter Rivkeh. She's not shayach to yibum chalitza b'chlal. So she's just a widow. She's allowed to marry a kohen. Nisyabmu, if they did yibum, Beis Shammai machshirin, Beis Hillel poslin. So if they did Yibum, so Beis Shammai says, okay, so they did Yibum, right? So let's say Reuvein was married to Sarah and to Rivkeh, Reuvein dies. Now, Sarah does Yibum with Shimin, and then Shimin dies. So whatever, she's a widow, she could still marry a Kohen. Whereas with Beis Hillel Poslan, Beis Hillel says no, she wouldn't be able to marry a Kohen because she wasn't allowed to marry Shimin. She married somebody who was apostle. There was, I guess, probably a chiyuv karis there, I'd imagine. And therefore, she's not allowed to marry a Kohen. Now, says the Gemara, says the Mishnah something very interesting. Even though Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel disagree, and Beis Shammai says that the tzara does do Yibum, Beis Hillel says, Ma pitom, if they do Yibum, then you're married to somebody who you're not allowed to be married to, and there's nafkaminas in terms of the offspring. Nonetheless, lo nimnu Beis Shammai milisa noshim Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai would not refrain from marrying wives from Beis Hillel, v'lo Beis Hillel mi Beis Shammai. And Beis Hillel would not refrain from marrying women from the house of Shammai. All of the Tuma and Tyra that Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel would say are Torah and Tameh, lo nimnu osin Tyrus elu agabe elu. And people who were makbid on Tyrus would have no problem with the Tuma and Tyra between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Kilu, this is a kind of a crazy thing, right? We're saying even though Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel are like mamish opposed to each other over here to the extent that like Beis Shammai is saying that the tzaras are allowed to marry, right? Sarah, the tzara is allowed to marry Shimin. Beis Hillel says she's definitely not. And if she does, then she's like, being with somebody who she's usher to. And like, the children, I guess, are mamzerim. Nonetheless, they would marry each other. Rashi says, well, they would just kind of clarify, like, okay, this person was sort of married to a tzara, and therefore, we kind of say it's okay, you say it's not. So I guess that they would clarify it somehow. But I don't know, it seems like risky. I don't know, it's like super interesting. That nonetheless they would marry each other. I don't know, not really sure what to make of it, right? So Rashi says, right, that, well, they would clarify and make sure that they were going along the same opinions, but I don't know, I wonder if it's all, I'm not exactly sure how to understand that. I guess the Pashup shot would have to be that, right? They have to make sure that they're not marrying anybody that they're not allowed to, but it's just super interesting to point, that the Mishnah points out that even though they disagreed with each other, they still would marry each other. Very interesting. Now, it says the Gemara, Amr Shimin ben Pazi, my time at the Beis Shammai. How come Beis Shammai says that the tzara is permitted to, that the tzara does Yibum? The pasuk says, Losia eishes hames, achutza liish zar. That the pasuk says in the context of Yibum, Losia eishes hames, achutza. That, let's just take sort of the simplest case of Yibum. Reuvein is married to Sarah, Reuvein dies, Sarah marries Shimin. Does Yibum with Shimin. How come? What's the pasuk says? Losia ish eishes hames achutza liish zar. That Sarah should not be, go marry some random person. No, marry Shimin. Chutza mechladika pnimis. And when it says chutza, right, external, that implies that there's an internal. Ki'ilu. When it says Losia eishes hames achutza, that's sort of the external wife of the nifter of Reuvein, should not be to some random person. So achutza, external, implies pnimis, that there's an internal, meaning the tzara, that there's you can have a situation where you have like Rivkeh, who's kind of like an erva, and then you have the tzara, the co-wife, who's the chutza, and even so, we're still saying that she should not marry some random person, she should do Yibum with Shimin. So that's how Beis Shammai learns that the tzara does Yibum. And the Torah is saying, nonetheless, don't marry some random person, marry Shimin. Beis Hillel, whereas Beis Hillel say that what we learn out from Achutza is Lichd Rav Yehuda Amarav. It's like Rav Yehuda says the name Rav Dam Rav Yehuda Amarav. Minayin shen Kiddushin Tovsim bi Yevamos. How do you know Kiddushin are not Tovs by a Yevama? Meaning, if Reuvein dies and now Sarah needs to marry Shimin, and then comes this random guy named Levi, not a brother or anything, just a random guy named Levi, he comes and he's Mekadesh Sarah. But Sarah has a Zika to Shimin. So kedushin is not going to work. Levi's kedushin is not going to work. Shinemar, as the pasuk says, Lo siya eishes hameis hachutza leish zar. Lo siya ba'havoya. That the wife of the mace, that the wife of Shimin, of Reuvein, i.e. Sarah, should not be outside hachutza leish zar, to a random person. Lo siya ba'havoya, there shouldn't be any sort of being, that there shouldn't be any kedushin there. Uveis Shammai, how does Beis Shammai know that kedushin is not tofes by a Yevama? Miksiv lachutz, chutza ksiv. It doesn't say lachutz, which would imply right. It says chutza, which is like chitzona, which is like external, which is like a tzara. So if we would just say lachutz, so then you could say, sure, maybe it's talking about that kedushin isn't tofes, but it says chutza, which is like chitzona, which is like a reference to the tzara. Beis Hillel, whereas Beis Hillel responds, "Kevin dichsiv chutza kiman dichsiv lo chutz dami." Look, the fact of the matter is, says Beis Hillel, that chutza is the same thing as la chutz. The Tanya is learning a price of Nechemia Omer kol tevish etzricha lamed b'tchilasa iti la kosufei b'sofa. That any word that you would need a lamed at the beginning, the Torah just puts a hey at the end of it. V'tan de Rabbi Shmuel could go on elim elima, and it's telling the besmention of Rabbi Shmuel. Like, for example, when it says elim, it says elima, which is like le'elim, to elim. Machnoim, machnoimo. So when it says the place called machnoim, so it says machnoima, which means lemachnoim, basically. Mitzrayim, mitzrayim. Mitzrayim also is like limitzrayim. Divlosaima, Yerushalayim, midbara. So these are all examples of things that needed a lamed in the front, and instead the Torah puts a hey at the end. So therefore chutza is basically la chutz. And therefore it's a reference to say that kedushin is not tofes by a yevama. Okay. Beis Shammai de Yehuda Amarav Menalu. How does Beis Shammai know that kedushin is not tofes by a yevama? Mili'ish zar nafka. They learn it out from ish zar that she can't be to some random person. Beis Hillel nami tepiklu mili'ish zar. Why doesn't Beis Hillel also learn it out from ish zar? Ena chinami. The Gemara says, yeah, ena chinami, you can learn it out from ish zar. So chutza lamali. Well then what does Beis Hillel do with chutza? L'rabusa arusa. Well, it's coming to include even an arusa, that kilu, if Reuvein was engaged to Sarah and then Reuvein dies, so then Sarah needs to do yibum with Shimin, and that Sarah needs to do chalitza with Shimin, and like kedushin would not be if some random dude, fine, right? So since she would need to do, even by Narusa, she would have to do yibum. Okay. V'idoch michutza hachutza. Beis Shammai learns out that the arusa is shaykh to yibum from the fact that it could have said chutza, but it says hachutza. V'idach chutza hachutza lo mashmilu, and Beis Hillel doesn't learn that chutza hachutza thing, so that's why they learn it out. That's where they learn out the yibum for a that's why they learn out yibum for an arusa from chutza. They don't need the chutza hachutza thing. Fine. Alright, friends, we're gonna hold it here. We have a little bit more to do here on we got some more to do here on Yud Gimel, but we're gonna stop here, I think, and we'll pick up from here tomorrow. Okay, friends, what do we learn about today? Today we learned about when we say that if the erva gets divorced or whatever, so our Mishnah implied that can even happen, if there was an overlap with the co-wife. We had a different Mishnah that says that the divorce would have to happen before the co-wife comes in. So there are two ways to answer it. One way is to say that, well, it's two different tanas. The other way to answer it is to say that, no, it's saying, in a situation where even if they overlap, but they got divorced before Reuvein died, so then the tzara can do Yibum, and certainly in a situation where the divorce happened and there was no overlap. Okay, we talked about when Rivkeh is the daughter of Shimin and she's a Ketana as well. She's not able to do Meyun after the fact because once Reuvein dies, that kind of, she can no longer do just Meyun to uproot the marriage to Reuvein initially. And then we got to a new Mishnah where we said that there are additional 6 arayos, but they're not shaykh to this Erva situation because you can never have a situation where your brother would be married to them. For example, your mother, your sister. We saw something very interesting, which is a machlokus between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, that Beis Shammai says that the whole co-wife thing is irrelevant, and actually the co-wife would do Yibum. Beis Hillel, of course, is who we've been assuming which is that the co-wife does not do Yibum. Friends, that was Daf Yud Gimel of Masechta Yevamos. Hope you enjoy. Peace out.